Hello and welcome back to Millennia Tales. In the video, we are digging deep beneath the very foundations of British power. You know the legend of Guy Fawkes, but did you know that the actual plot to blow up Parliament was exposed by a single anonymous letter, a message carrying a chilling code that was almost dismissed as a joke? This story is not about a single man with a match. It's about a terrifying intelligence war and the secret architecture that almost brought down an entire kingdom. If you want to know how King James unmasked the traitor and how a single act of conscience saved Britain, you need to watch this entire history. But before we dive into the Cellar Code, please take a second to subscribe to Millennia Tales and hit that like button to help us unearth more lost stories. You know the legend. Guy Fawkes, the barrels of gunpowder, the dark night beneath the Houses of Parliament. But the true story of 1605 is not about a terrorist. It's about a vast, hidden intelligence war that took place in the shadows of Whitehall. A code broken in a single moment, and the secret architecture that almost made the plot succeed. This is the moment British history hinged on one desperate warning, and the silent code that named a traitor. The conspiracy to obliterate King James I, the royal family, and the entire Parliament in one catastrophic blast on November 5, 1605, was arguably the most audacious act of treason ever conceived on British soil. But by the autumn of that year, the plot had become less a work of revolutionary zeal and more a logistical nightmare played out beneath the very feet of the English government. The architect of treason and the hidden cellar. The mastermind was Robert Catesby, a charismatic, wealthy Catholic gentleman from Warwickshire, driven to fury by King James I's failure to deliver the religious toleration Catholics had hoped for. Catesby's plan was total: kill the head, the body, and the law all at once. By early 1605, the conspirators had secured their target. They leased a house adjacent to the Palace of Westminster and began burrowing toward the foundations of the House of Lords. This was the first great folly of the plot. Digging through the ancient waterlogged foundations of Westminster was exhausting, dangerous work. The ground was saturated by the nearby Thames, and the risk of collapse was constant. Then they received an enormous, unexpected stroke of luck, the type of luck that makes a conspiracy feel divinely sanctioned. They discovered that the room immediately beneath the House of Lords was not a deep foundation, but a large, readily accessible coal cellar, which had become vacant. They secured the lease. The tunneling was abandoned, and the target was simplified. Transport the explosive charge directly into the vacant room beneath the king's throne. Over several weeks, Fawkes, the chief explosives expert, overseen by Thomas Percy, moved 36 barrels of gunpowder into the dark, damp cellar. The barrels were carefully concealed beneath piles of firewood and coal, ready for ignition. The conspirators, confident in their deadly concealment, retired to the countryside to await the opening of Parliament. The intelligence failure and the hidden watch. The Privy Council, the king's chief advisers, was aware of a persistent threat of Catholic insurrection, but lacked concrete intelligence on the scale of Catesby's plot. The council relied heavily on the spy master, Robert Salisbury, the Earl of Salisbury, who had inherited Queen Elizabeth I's vast network of spies and informants. However, Salisbury was playing a dangerous game. Some historians believe that Salisbury was aware of the plot's existence, or at least the vague chatter, but allowed it to progress deliberately, intending to expose it at the last minute to maximize the political benefit for the crown and justify the further persecution of Catholics. Throughout the summer and autumn of 1605, the hidden cellar remained undisturbed, a perfect archive of death beneath the state. Fawkes, using the alias John Johnson, established residency in the nearby house. His quiet, professional competence was the plot's best defense. The plot's vulnerability lay not in its military logistics, but in the human element. The conspirators were Catholic gentlemen, friends and family, bound by faith and loyalty. But among them was a deadly concern. Several Catholic nobles and members of Parliament were expected to be present at the state opening. How could they warn their friends without exposing the entire enterprise? The Montaegle letter, the cipher, and the code. The plot collapsed on Saturday, October 26, 1605, only 10 days before the planned explosion. The warning came not through a spy, but through an anonymous letter delivered to Lord Montaegle, a Catholic nobleman known for his loyalty to the king and for his wife's Catholic family ties.
Montaegle, astonished and terrified, took the letter immediately to the Earl of Salisbury, Robert Cecil. This moment is the pivotal hinge of the whole narrative. Was the letter truly anonymous, or was it a calculated leak by Cecil to initiate the final phase of his intelligence operation? Cecil presented the letter to King James I, who immediately demonstrated an unnerving insight. Unlike Cecil, who saw only general danger, James focused on the phrase, "The blow will come for all this stirring or trouble in the time of Parliament." James, viewing the letter as a riddle, immediately concluded that the warning hinted at a danger beneath the house, perhaps from gunpowder. This royal intuition, whether genuine or politically motivated, focused the investigation. The actual author of the letter remains one of history's great secrets, but the consensus points to Francis Tresham, one of the conspirators, who was terrified that his brother-in-law, Lord Montaegle, would be killed. The leak, born of human compassion, sealed the plot's doom. The capture, the unmasking of John Johnson. On the night of November 4th, officials finally searched the cellar. They found Guy Fawkes, using his alias John Johnson, standing guard among the enormous barrels concealed beneath the coal. Fawkes, initially calm and collected, was arrested. The subsequent search revealed the full scope of the explosive charge. The gunpowder had been carefully hidden and stabilized to prevent premature ignition. Had the plot succeeded, the explosion, magnified by the contained architecture of the cellar, would have completely destroyed the Palace of Westminster and killed everyone within a 100-yard radius. Fawkes was taken to the Tower of London. Under torture in the infamous White Tower, administered by James I's own personal order, since torture was technically illegal under English common law, but permitted for treason, Fawkes confessed and gave up the names of his co-conspirators. The meticulous intelligence operation then swept across the Midlands, rounding up Catesby and the other plotters. The architectural legacy, rebuilding history. The discovery of the plot did more than just save the king. It fundamentally altered the relationship between the Crown, Parliament, and London's architecture. The annual search, the tradition of the yeomen of the guard searching the cellars beneath Parliament before the state opening, which continues today, began immediately after 1605. This physical act is a living reminder of the plot's proximity to success. The cellar's ghost. The cellar itself was not destroyed. It was bricked up and became a ghostly, inaccessible part of the palace's foundations. Though the original buildings burned in the Great Fire of 1834, The memory and the very footprint of the treasonous cellar remain integral to the site's history. The fear of the underground. The plot instilled a persistent, almost paranoid fear in the British government of the threats lurking in the underground spaces of London. This security consciousness became a defining feature of government buildings for centuries. The true defeat of the Gunpowder Plot was not the failure of the bomb, but the failure of the conspirators' secrecy, betrayed by a single act of conscience, or perhaps by the cynical machinations of the masterful spy master, Robert Cecil. Either way, the plot, conceived in religious zeal and executed with cold precision, was undone by the simple, fragile threads of human connection and communication, leaving behind a chilling architectural ghost beneath the heart of British democracy. The anniversary of the narrow escape, November 5th, remains a national commemoration of the moment the kingdom survived its greatest internal threat.